With the NBA draft 9 days away, all eyes are on the Wiz Kids. With everyone wondering what they should do at pick 6, the Wizards should strongly consider moving up from pick 18 for the second pick. We'll break it down here. This is Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, this is Locked On Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Network, it's your team every day. Alongside DC Sports content creating savant and credentialed media member for the Washington Wizards, Abdullah Ayyubi, I'm Ben Strober, and I cover all things DC Sports for 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980. We're joined by a colleague of mine at The Fan. Let's welcome in the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham. You can catch this young superstar hosting Overtime on 106.7 The Fan or live as well on the Infinity Sports Network. Real quick, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, Lynnell. Well, first off, we're talking about the Wizards here, and maybe for the first time in a really long time, maybe the Wizards aren't the laughingstock of DC anymore with what's happening with the Washington Nationals right now. So I think that's something we could actually just touch on real quick here to open things up. That's one of the more interesting things I've noticed, that maybe the Nationals are in a worse spot with worse direction than the Wizards right now.
What was that question we were talking? Remember that? I actually had this exact question one night when we were on Overtime. I said, if I was to tell you that the Wizards are in a better place in their rebuild than the Nats, would people think that I'm crazy? I think the one thing that when you have that conversation, the Nats have their franchise cornerstone and James Wood, and he is realistically, one of the most powerful bats in all of Major League Baseball, one of the most feared hitters already at just 22 years of age. But I think where the Wizards are currently at, their depth of their team right now, I think it's going to be a tough team to make. I think they're going to be good basketball players to get cut come training camp. And Will Dawkins talked about it in his end of season presser. He challenged everybody, from, roster spot number 1 all the way down to 15 to come back better. We'll see what type of moves they make on draft night in terms of shipping out some of the veterans, but they're in a very interesting spot. And the Nats right now look like they're hopeless.
I can't even worry about them right now. It just gets me frustrated. But one thing that we can be excited about, the NBA draft 9 days away, Lynnell, and like you said, It's going to be a tough roster to make, and the Wizards are hopefully adding 2 really talented pieces to this team. However, one thing that you have flirted with the idea, a lot of Wizards fans have, should the Wizards make a move from the 18th pick and maybe get back into the lottery and take someone they really have their eyes on? What are you thinking here?
I definitely think that should be the play. Should be the expected thing amongst Wizards fans as well. If you think about what Will Dawkins and company have done in their first 2 drafts here in DC, both of which included a trade in that first round at some point. They moved up 1 spot with Indiana to secure Bilal Coulibaly services in their first year. And then last year you saw them trade into the first round into the first round to acquire Bud Carrington, moving off of Denny Avdia on draft night in a stunner that we were on the air doing our NBA draft coverage for 106.7 Fan and 980, and that broke during the first round, and it was exciting. And I expect a similar feeling coming up 9 days from now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Lena, is there a certain guy? I mean, me and Ben talk about Derek Queen potentially. I mean, we saw on Yahoo, they said he could drop to 18, which I don't think is possible at any means because he's just too talented. I think at most he'll fall to 12 at most. Is there a guy that maybe a guy in Common Model Watch who slips out of the top 10 that if you're Will Dawkins, you have to go after him and pair him up with a guy with Alex Sarr?
Yeah, I think who exactly they move up for is going to be dependent on who they're able to get at 6. I know there are a lot of different, names out there floating around. I would even go as far as to say, I know this is, a conversation centered around the 18th pick. I would go so far as to say, maybe moving up from 6 is still a possibility. If they target a guy that they want and feel like they can't move forward without, they're going to go get them. They have plenty of assets to do so. The Phoenix pick swaps, the veterans that you have on this roster, including Marcus Smart, Cord Kisper, guys that would be, highly touted, highly regarded, picks and pieces to other teams. I think that would be huge. But in terms of if you're moving up from 18, if there's a couple of guys that I think could potentially slip out of the lottery, Derek Queen, Abdul, like you said, to me is one of them. Taking him at 6, like I've gone back and forth with Ben about this multiple different times, with fans about this multiple different times. Derek Queen's a good prospect. Derek Queen's not an elite prospect, but I think he's a very good prospect. So to me, taking him at 6 is kind of rich. If the Wizards, say, had the 9th pick or the 10th pick, I think Queen with their first selection would have been a more realistic of a discussion. But when you're picking at 6 overall, the flaws that he has on the defensive end and then his overall motor, I think is too big of a risk to swing at 6. But like, if he's going to fall in that 11, 12 range, I would be perfectly fine, pulling the trigger on him there. I think the fit with him in DC is offensively, I think he fits like a glove. The ability to play make from the 5 spot, being able to create off the bounce at 6'10" is impressive. What I still am concerned about, and I don't even want to say concerned, it's a question, and you'll see it, right off the rip in Summer League, but that really won't be a good gauge of it either, because a lot of those dudes would be, UPS drivers at the end of the thing. Can his athleticism translate to the pro level? It's one thing to do it in college in the Big Ten, where you've got the foot quickness, advantage over a lot of dudes. But you look at the Eastern Conference and some of the centers that he's going to have to go up against, right? We just saw Miles Turner. Like, can he beat Miles Turner off the bounce? Is he quick enough to beat a guy like that? That's kind of my concern with him, is how does the athleticism actually translate? It was a major plus for him at the collegiate level, but will it be at the pro level? I think it can be, even if the athleticism is something that evens out in this play style and he's not beating people off the bounce. I think the one thing that we saw with him, especially in that buzzer beater against Colorado State, he's got a tremendous ability to finish around the rim with either hand. He uses the glass. I think that could be a part of, his offensive repertoire moving forward. I want to see him be able to knock down the 3-point ball consistently as well. Like, if that could become a part of his game, I think you really could start to see, what the future of him looks like and what his ceiling could potentially be. I just think playing him next to Sarr allows you to be able to, stretch the floor a little bit, not have the interior be so clogged up. I think in today's NBA, the best teams are able to go 5 out when they need to. Doesn't have to be something you live with, but you got to have that ability to trot out lineups where all 5 guys can stretch the floor, where all 5 guys can win off the bounce. So I think that's the identity and play style that the Wizards are trying to incorporate. And I think Queen would fit perfectly. If not Queen, one other guy that I've started to like a lot in this process as well is Asa Newell. Another guy that I think has the defensive versatility. I think he's a really good athlete. The offensive game is not there. I'll be completely honest with you. He's not the most polished guy on that end, but he can, catch and shoot right now at this point in his career. But I like him on the defensive end and the switchability and the ability to be able to go out on the perimeter and play, high quality defense against guards and stop them from penetrating. I think he can be really good there. Nick Clifford is another guy that I've been pretty interested in as well. We got an up close and personal look at him when, Maryland played Colorado State. And I think
killed us. He
kind of fits that mold of being the plug and play, ready to go right now type of guy. He's interesting to me. They have a guy on their team already who I think is a similar comp, and maybe Neek is a little bit more gifted offensively and putting the ball on the deck. I think he's got some Sadiq Bey in this game. Like, that's the guy that he really reminds me of. Sadiq Bey, when he comes back from his ACL tear, is going to take someone's job in this rotation for the Wizards. So it'll be interesting. Those are a couple names, though, that I like.
Well, Lynnell, so if you right now are suggesting that the Wizards should absolutely make a move up from 18 and try to get back into the lottery potentially and pick up one of these guys that you mentioned, do you, in your belief right now, believe the Wizards have the arsenal to get this done in a trade, or is Jordan Poole going to be someone that gets packaged on draft night to make this happen?
That's a good question. I think if you're moving off of Jordan Poole from 18, I need to go up to as high as 8, 9.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm moving Jordan Poole to get from 18 to 12, so to speak, or 18 to 13, so to speak. I think they're going to try and keep Jordan Poole in house. I continue to believe that at 26 years old, which will turn this year, he is a part of this future of the core moving forward. To me, I think he proved a lot last year. I think internally they're really high on him. It's not just a basketball player, but as a person, as a leader. I got a chance to, get to know him a little bit over the past couple of seasons since he's gotten here to Washington, and a lot of conversations with him last year, were off the record. and me and him just having real conversations about, his standing in the league and the way other, players talk about him. There was a story that I had after they played the New Orleans Pelicans. I walked into the locker room, blanking on the guy's name. He ended up playing for the Wizards at the end of that season, which was ironic. They were basically talking about Jordan and saying, man, he's really blowing this opportunity. He's got the chance to really be the guy in Washington, and he's not taking it seriously, and he's not taking good shots. The one thing I would tell any person that questions the shot selection of Jordan Poole, he is the biggest gym rat in this organization. And I think the shots he takes are difficult ones, but it's ones that he's in the lab working on hours at a time. That's why this year, when the confidence was behind him, you saw the scoring explosion. You saw what he was able to do in limited minutes. For him to put up the career numbers that he did in under 30 minutes per contest, knowing that they were trying to continue to work other guys in and out of the lineup, I think you got to be really impressed. And his mentorship to the young guys, Bub Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly, somebody who moved his locker next to, just to say, hey, let me put my arm around you and be that mentor for you. I think he's probably one of the most misunderstood guys in all the NBA.
See, this is why we bring you on here, Lynnell. I mean, these are excellent anecdotes right here that I think some of our audience wouldn't have even known about. That a lot of people have a perception the way they feel about Jordan Poole and feel that his time in Washington needs to end, but maybe after hearing some of this, that might sway the opinion. All right, let's keep this going. When we're back from the break, let's hear Lynnell's opinion on what the timeline looks like for this Wizards team. We heard it from Greg Finberg yesterday. Let's get another option here and see what Lynnell's thinking. We'll have that next here on Locked On Wizards. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance spreads, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and how can you track these trends, and how can you build your next bet? I mean, Jalen Williams goes crazy in the NBA Finals tonight. What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds with TJ McConnell tonight in there? New to FanDuel, it's perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back here to Locked On Wizards alongside Abdullah Ayyubi. I'm Ben Strober, and of course, the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham, who joins us in the program here tonight to break things down. Wizards basketball entering really the third year of this official rebrand under this new regime that has been ushered in here by Will Dawkins. And there have been a lot of questions on what the timeline looks like. And of course, not getting the luck that Washington had hoped for in the lottery maybe delays things a little bit. Lynnell, how do you feel like Washington's lottery luck maybe sets them back a little bit? Where are we looking at a timeline right now? What are your expectations for the next couple of seasons here?
I wouldn't say their lottery luck set them back, because no matter what, I think they were going to be in the lottery again next year.
Definitely.
That 2026 pick currently belongs to the New York Knicks unless it is in the top 8 of the draft. So if you're the Wizards, I think it bodes well for you to still try and play competitive basketball, try and win games. I believe them when they say this. I don't think last year they were intentionally trying to lose. I think they were doing a really good job of developing players on the fly. You saw a lot of different guys get high-quality minutes and register, 10-point games and 15-point games. So I think, going back to what we said earlier, it's just going to be a super competitive team, and we'll see what happens with Chris Middleton and whether or not he opts into his $30+ million player option. If he does, that's another asset that Washington has at their disposal to try and, potentially dump off on a championship contending team in hopes of getting some assets back in return. But I think next year you're probably going to try to be in the lottery again just so you can maintain the rights to that first-round pick that you have. But even if they would have landed the number 1 overall pick and you get Cooper Flagg, I think it would have been a lot more buzz and excitement around the team, and you would have felt like you found really the most important part of this rebuild. That is your ace, your championship contending player. What I immediately began to think, and watching the finals too, it's hard to not have it at the front of your mind. You don't have to land the number 1 overall pick or the number 2 pick or the number 3 pick to land that franchise altering talent. There are other ways that you can go about doing it, We saw what Oklahoma City was able to do, acquiring, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander from the Clippers. We saw what Indiana was able to do, acquiring, Pascal Siakam from Toronto, and then Halliburton from the Sacramento Kings. So there are other ways to add that talented piece. I think the lottery kind of made this summer more of a summer to be aggressive, which we'll see them probably trade up in this draft again to get the guy that they want. Next year, though, I think it's still about laying that foundation and building on how you played post February 1 last year. Is really how I gauge this group, right? Is the way they played after February 1st, after you get, Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton into the fold. And I think when Washington traded for those two guys, there was a lot of talk of, will they buy them out and were they actually going to be here? Not only were they here, they were super instrumental to guys down the stretch. If you think about the way Bub Carrington played and the confidence he played with in the final month and a half, 2 months of the season, he showed flashes and potential of being a lead guard in this league. So it makes the question in the backcourt at 6 even more interesting. Does it rule out a guy like Jeremiah Fears because it feels like he's redundant of what you already have? I know Trey Johnson is somebody that a lot of folks want here in Washington. He's my probably odds-on favorite for the number 6 pick if there's no VJ Edgecombe or Ace Bailey. I think he is a professional shot maker and someone that can come in and give them instant offense. And he's not a guy that has to start right away either. That's the one thing that Wizards fans should, I guess, brace themselves for as well. The number 6 pick, the number 18th overall pick, no guarantee that they come in here and start. I will say this: if you're a center, come on, Malo watch at 6 potentially, right? I think he would have the inside track to coming in and starting because there's not as much competition for him. But if you're drafting a VJ Edgecombe or a Jeremiah Fears or Trey Johnson for that matter, there's going to be competition for minutes with Jordan Poole, Marcus Smart, Bub Carrington, AJ Johnson still very much a part of this thing. So it's going to be interesting to see. They're still about 2 years away to me. Like, I don't think next year's a competitive year. I think the year after that, maybe you're seeing a team that's flirting with a play-in spot and fighting for, a 8 seed in the East. But it's a slow rebuild. I mean, they told you straight up when they got here what type of rebuild it was going to be. I just think Ted Leonsis has got a lot of slack and caught a lot of heat, and I think rightfully so. He gave out maybe probably one of the worst decisions you'll ever see a basketball owner make, giving Bradley Beal that no trade clause. It really hampered everything for this franchise. So
Not
for
our
them
problem
to be
anymore.
for them to be able to pivot out of that into this and turn him into what they turned him into, I think it just really highlights, the expertise of Will Dawkins and Mike Winger and Travis Schlenk and these new guys that are in control here in DC. The draft, though, is where it matters the most. I mean, we're going to talk about Bilal Coulibaly here in a second. Like, I don't need you to hit a home run every time, but there can't be any more singles in the draft here for the Wizards. Not if you're trying to actually compete here in the next 2 or 3 seasons. You got to hit doubles, triples, and the homer is needed eventually.
Yeah, no, you brought up a lot of great points, Lynnell. There's a big reason why I love Will Dawkins, and I don't know how people out there are calling for this man to, somewhat not be fired, but question, especially since what we've dealt with in the past with Grunfeld and Shepard. Will Dawkins has done a great job. I gave him an A-. I think this upcoming draft, I think no matter if this Wizards team had that first overall pick, I'm so confident that 6 and 18 he's gonna be able to deliver. Because last year you hit on a weak draft class label in all 3 draft picks, and on top of that, you trade for a guy on AJ Johnson. The year before, a second round pick in Tristan Vucevic. I mean, Lynnell, the last time we've had a second round pick that actually contributes meaningful minutes when given the opportunities, it's probably a long time ago.
I can't name you one, and I'll be straight up with you. I can't name you one. So I forget about the Vucevic pick sometimes too, because he very much is a part of the fold, and they're hoping that he can develop because that's a traditional modern-day NBA big, somebody that can step out on the perimeter and stretch the floor. He can finish around the basket. I just need him to defend and rebound better. But he's young, so you have time and a runway to grow.
Year 3 is upcoming for Bilal Coulibaly, and there's been some flashes of what he can be, but after having the injury hamper the end to his first 2 seasons, there are some obvious areas in need of improvement. And I know Lynnell's got some thoughts on that, so we're going to touch on that next. This is Locked On Wizards. All right, welcome back to Locked On Wizards. One last segment here with Lynnell Willingham, who joins us today. Abdullah Ayyubi alongside. I'm Ben Strober. And we're touching on Bilal Coulibaly, the first draft pick that was brought in here in the Will Dawkins era, the Frenchman who has been known for being a stout defender and really developing his game over the first 2 years he's been in D.C. He has proven himself as someone that can be an elite on-ball defender for this Washington team, but the offense is something that has stood out as something that he needs a lot of improvement and needs to improve, shooting from the outside and various other parts of his offensive game. Lynnell, from what you've seen from Bilal Coulibaly in the first 2 years, where do you see his ceiling as a player if he's able to develop his offensive game a little bit more than it is right now?
His ceiling, that is still, I think, it's still to be determined. He's still a very moldable piece of clay to me. He's going into year number 3. You expect him to take a bigger jump offensively this year, but he made a big jump this past year, in my opinion. I thought defensively, like, we were, having conversations about it and hoping about it in year 1. In year 2, you really saw him, prove himself as one of the elite perimeter defenders right now in the NBA, and getting the chance to, talk to a couple of different guys after, post game in his first year. Brandon Ingram had some really positive things to say about Bilal, especially when it came to his body improving, right? Brandon Ingram, a guy that, was very slim coming into the NBA, still has a very slender stature, and, kind of gave me some tidbits as to what Bilal should do to get bigger. I think that's the other thing too, getting his body stronger. You saw his frame improve this past year. He is a highlight reel though. He had some of the best poster dunks this past year that you will see across the association. I think his offensive game is still a work in progress, but I think the biggest thing for his offense is not necessarily, he's got to develop more skills. Obviously, I'm not trying to undermine or overhype his skill or ability at all, but I think it's more of a mentality thing for Bilal Coulibaly. He has to be assertive. He has to know when the defender is beat. He has to know when to continue to get downhill and attack the basket. There are too many times last year where you saw Bilal Coulibaly have a guy on his hip, then pull the ball back out and either pick up his dribble or pass the ball away. I think he's got to understand that he is big and athletic and strong enough to where he can, attempt contested layups. He can try and dunk on people because he's going to get contact a lot of the times. He is a freak athlete, a top 1%er in the league to me when it comes to, athletic profiles. He can really jump out of the gym. He's fast. He's a quick leaper. I think he's a physical, tough guy too, which is why I blame it more on mentality, not ability. Him not being more aggressive, getting downhill, and being a guy that can really live at the free throw line as well, man. Like, that's the next step to me for him. I think we've seen him, have streaky moments as a perimeter shooter. I think the mid-range game is something we saw him take a lot more jump shots at this year. I expect that to be another part of his game. Because he is 6'8" and jumps high, you get the benefit of not needing to have the most perfect form. It's really about just being able to rise over your defender and keep your form or hold your follow-through. I think he'll get better in that area. His ceiling, though, like, I don't think it's fair still. I still look at him as the same way that I look at him when he was drafted. The injury part of this, I think, is huge. Not being able to finish the end of the year. Think about what Bub Carrington did at the end of the year. Think about, some of the flashes we saw from Alex Sarr at the end of the year. Like, that sometimes is, some of the most pivotal time of your NBA career, especially early on, because for the Wizards, they're out of contention. You're getting extended minutes. You get the chance to try things and get better in game. You can do all the skill and drill work all you want. If you're not playing 5-on-5 live basketball, you're not going to really be able to get better. So I think that's the big issue I see with Bilal Coulibaly. Can he stay healthy? This is a big summer for him, though, because he has to take a step this year offensively, or else the whispers are going to start turning into yells when it comes to what he is and whether or not he should be moved ultimately or not. I think when he was drafted, I tried to warn people, like, if he turns into an all-NBA defender, and if he's Lou Dort, right? If he turns into Lou Dort, that's a win. That's a win. Because Lou Dort is a starting member of a championship rotation. Like, that's the one thing that I think fans got to understand. Not everything's going to be a home run. I understand you want to hit one eventually here, but your doubles and your triples are fine. I look at Bilal Coulibaly as a first at-bat double for Will Dawkins and company, a guy that's going to come in here and give you something right away on the defensive end and show and that's what your defensive identity, or your team identity rather, is defending. And he is a guy that's a A+ on-ball defender, and I think the rest of his game will continue to catch up. In terms of his hierarchy amongst the young cats, I think it's Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George.
You just made me think of something really interesting, though, that you bring up with it's okay for Wizards fans to realize that Bilal Coulibaly might never be this home run type player that maybe people expect, especially from the first draft pick of this new regime. However, hypothetical right here, and given the way or what we're hearing about how the NBA draft board is going to shape up at 6, if Edgecombe is there, someone that would be playing almost in that position with Bilal, he comes in, and obviously there's going to be competition at that spot. If he's someone that can be more of a triple to a home run type of player, where does that leave Bilal in this instance? Is that something where we'd see him maybe coming off the bench and being a key piece off the bench for this Wizards team eventually, or would they just move on from him, you think?
Go to the bench. Nothing wrong with playing off the bench. You got to play 8 guys.
I just think a lot of Wizards fans aren't really prepared for that conversation right now, that there could be a future with him on the bench.
I'll take it a step further. I think a lot of Wizards fans just aren't realistic. That's really the whole fact of the matter with it. Like, he's the number 7 overall pick. Like, if he ends up being a key cog in your rotation once you're a playoff contending team, that's fine. There will be games where matchups dictate him starting. I think he could play the 2 through the 4 position. He can guard 1 through 4. Like, there's value in the NBA for that. So if the Wizards don't value him, I'm sure another team out there would value him, certainly. And he's only, 21? So, come on. There's so much runway for him to get. Imagine what he is at 25. Like, come on. And that's still uber young in this league. So we just got to have patience with Bilal, I think. A lot of people want to rush him into being something that maybe he's not ready to be yet. And I think he works. It's not like there's a character issue with Bilal. It's not like you got to worry about him getting in trouble or not putting in enough work to be good. He's a gym rat. He does nothing but play NBA 2K and stream. You guys look up his YouTube. He's got a vlog. I made a joke about him in the locker room with. He's another guy because him and Jordan's locker are right next to each other. I've talked to them a lot over the past 2 years, and Bilal is just a super down-to-earth kid. And I'm 27, and I'm a young buck in there, and a lot of the other beat reporters and guys that cover the team are a little bit older. Your Chase Hughes and your Josh Robbins and your David Aldridge and things of that nature. So, like, being a younger guy in there, I've had, different conversations with some of these cats about what you like to do in your free time. And I think he is just dialed in on basketball, and he's focused on all the right things. His parents are very instrumental in his life still. So I just think he's wired the right way, and he loves hoop. And I think if whatever happens to him, whatever he turns into, it won't be because of a lack of hard work.
Yeah, no, I agree, Lynnell. Bilal is a physical specimen, and it's so unfortunate because a lot of NBA fans think that if you're not an all-star, you're a waste of an NBA player. When the reality of the situation is there's so many role players out there, and they're just as meaningful as all-star players out there. And we saw with Bilal Coulibaly, less than 24 hours, Kyle Kuzma getting traded. He gets his first career triple-double against the Brooklyn Nets, and you win that game. So the flashes are there. My question to you is there a certain amount of points per game that needs to be hit for you to say, hey, okay, he's hitting that year 3 stride offensively?
It's hard for me to even say that because, he's like the 5th option. Think about it. So let's play hypothetical here. Let's say it's Trey Johnson. Trey Johnson's above him in the offensive hierarchy. Bub is above him in the offensive hierarchy. Jordan Poole's above him in the offensive hierarchy. Sarr is above him in the offensive hierarchy. He is. I'm trying to make comparisons. Jaden McDaniels in Minnesota with the Timberwolves. He's that type of player. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's that type of player. I don't know if he's ever going to be some 15, 17 point per game scorer. I think if you can get 12 to 13 points from him and 7 rebounds and maybe 5, 6 assists, that's who he is.
All right, well, Lynnell, thank you as always, man. You kill it. Bring it to the table. Be sure to check out my guy on Twitter at NELL_BTB. I feel like you plugging it when you do it on your show. You can catch him on 106.7 The Fan, the host of Overtime, fills in on the Team 980, and also on the Infinity Sports Network. Lynnell Willingham, the youngest in charge, everyone. Stay tapped in it. Lynnell, thanks for being on.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, that'll do it here for Locked On Wizards today. We got through a lot, and we got a lot more to get to as we approach the NBA draft upcoming. Just 8 days, really, from the time that we actually get this upload. 8 days until the 2025 NBA draft. We want to thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft, a 5-episode series with the most comprehensive NBA draft analysis. From NBA experts to college experts and NBA draft experts, find the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft on the NBA Big Board and Locked On NBA YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I want to thank everyone who joined us here today and tuned into this episode of Locked On Wizards. We will be back tomorrow with the next one. For Lynnell Willingham, who joined us, Abdullah Ayyubi, my co-host, I'm Ben Strober. We're signing off. We'll talk to you next time.